So we're going to open up for questions. We do have Ty with the mic there. If you just would grab the mic when you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and I'll have Ty come over. Remember, the public sometimes can't hear the question, so we want to make sure the public hears the question you're asking. So any questions?
Mayor, you said you went down south over the weekend. What did that trip teach you in us being prepared for this upcoming flood?
Well, oftentimes when the river starts to flow, you see a lot of open water in the fields, and you see overland, what we call overland flooding. In order for the water to get to the river, the ditches have to be flowing. And Denny and I used to take trips south, and basically what you're looking for is how much melt are we having. So it feels fantastic in Fargo. We got a nice melt. The roads are now dry. You can ride around and do some stuff. When you're down south, I went 50 miles down south. We got a lot of snow that's in the fields. We have a lot of snow that's out there. And I think that we're really, as we talked about before, probability is what Greg Gus talked about today. We're not into deterministic. I'll be curious this next week when I go down what I might find, and what you usually will start to see is water in the fields. And I went 50, 60 miles south, and we got a ways before we're going to be in a good melt. Any question? Maybe our only question.
I have one for Cass County in general. What specific rural areas are you guys expecting to be impacted the most?
The biggest area that we're looking at is along the Cheyenne River corridor. So first and foremost, north of West Fargo, all the way through Harwood and the Argusville area. We expect that it'll be at 2009 to 2011 type flood elevations. And that's very large, widespread overland flooding with a lot of sections of land covered. And that will cut off access to a lot of rural residents as well. So for those areas, people need to be thinking about not only their flood protection, but what they need to do and the supplies they need to have. So once their access is cut off, that they're able to live and operate out of their house without access.
And you were in Argusville the other evening with the mayor and their council, and they seem to take this very seriously, the Argusville area last night, right?
Absolutely.
And they know what's going to come at them. And for a lot of you who have not seen the flooding north of here, Mary and I know that's a big part of our problem sometimes, right?
Right, absolutely. So we've worked with the city of Harwood and Argusville. They're preparing, as well as we're out talking with those rural subdivisions and making sure that they're preparing. And it's a lot of individual preparation that people need to do in whether it's snow blowing around their homes so that they got a good foundation to build their sandbag levees, or preparing all their flood fighting supplies.
Mayor, a question to you, and I know I was just talking to Jason before this. There's a lot of, I guess maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but there are the armchair generals out there that are saying, why are we going to this extent? I understand why, but maybe a clear message to people out there might be wondering why we're prepping when there's such a quote-unquote small chance of the higher level.
Well, the answer to that is it's hard to make sandbags, to be honest with you. We can make 100,000 a day, and I'll have Bruce talk to this a little bit, but it's a question that once you have them, then you have to deploy them, so you have to get them back out in the field. And so it's really, when we opened the Fargo Dome in 2009, we could make 500,000 sandbags a day. That was awesome. But you had people, if you think about it, individually putting shovel into a bag and doing it. With the spider operation, we can do 100,000 a day, and it's so critical you're prepared. 2009, we had 10 days to prepare for the flood. We probably got 2-3 weeks this time to prepare for the flood. So the armchair people are saying, oh, it might only get to 37, 38. Good rainfall bumps that up. And what we don't ever do in Fargo is we don't lose a flood fight. So to your question, Don, you're right. We will be prepared, and we can store the sandbags if we don't need them. But it's always that effort to get them ready to go if we need them. And what a lot of people remember in 2009, it was a little chaos. It was a tremendous amount of work done in 10 days. We don't want to have that chaos. We want to have this an orderly flood fight. So that's why I keep saying don't be complacent, but be ready. So it's kind of those crazy things your dad did or your granddad did, said be prepared. And we always kind of look at that and go, are we doing overkill? And the reality is we have always been prepared when one of these events come. Bruce, I'd have you comment to why we took the 10%, 41 feet.
Well, I just go back to 2009. I was out at Sandbag Central, had planned to travel to the NCAA basketball tournament, had tickets and had to skip that. But we entered that from a sandbag production perspective. I believe, if memory serves me, we built a strategy around that 50% probability. And then the 5% was on the board. We chose not to prepare for that. But then when the river started rising, ultimately we did hit that 5%. We just didn't have time to win that one. We had to open up the Fargo Dome. We were producing 500,000 sandbags a day. If you'd have seen the chaos out there, you'd say that's not the way to run a flood fight. And so since that time, we've chosen this 10% number to prepare for. And as I mentioned earlier today, it is far easier to ramp something down once you have information to say it's not going to get there than it is to ramp up, because every day that goes by is a day lost. So that's why since 2009, we've started out with that 10%er on our mind, and if we don't need to go there, we'll just shut down.
Thank you. With Cass County facing such overland flooding, are there any efforts for the city of Fargo and Cass County to work together to lend their resources to the county? And if so, how would you do that?
Well, we work hand in hand with the city, and if you go certainly on the periphery, the ET areas, both north and south of Fargo, we will be tying into each other's levees, and so it's a coordinated effort. Certainly law enforcement works together. Our sheriff has got rescue equipment and the airboats and all types of equipment at his disposal, and certainly law enforcement consistently works together, and you'll see us as leaders working together. This will be one of many meetings that we will continue to have and coordinate our efforts together.
If it doesn't appear that way, we're trying to let everybody speak to what their needs are in their areas, but this is a very coordinated effort. Nathan and Jason work hand in hand, and if you look at many of their integrated parts for the flood fight, they are integrated, where the levees go, how he's protecting, how the county's protecting South Fargo, it all works together. But to get all those people in one area to do a sandbagging is difficult, so that's why we have two separate sites. And there's also people in the rural areas that like to do some of their work to help their neighbors out. So it's really an effort to get as much volunteer efforts in both areas. We work all hand in hand on everything, and Mary calls me if there's something they need. As we get further into the flood fight, if there's something needed or wanted and one entity can provide it, it will be provided. And to be honest, the county has some great airboats, so they have a different equipment we don't have, so it works very well together.
Thank you. How certain are you that you're going to reach the goal of filling all those sandbags? And is there something in place just in case you guys don't reach that goal of 1 million or sandbags filled?
So we're going to depend on the media. The media is our best hand in a fight flood. And what we're going to do to you every now and then, we're going to say we need help. Today we need some volunteers. So the media helped us in 2009. 3 in the morning, I was going to the dike by St. John's, and we needed to finish the dike that night. And reached out to the media. Whoever listens to radio at 3 in the morning, I don't know, but people did. And I said, I need 300 people here, and 400 or 500 showed up. They finished the dike by 8 in the morning. So we very much depend on the media helping us out. And Mary and I and Jason and Bruce may well reach out to you and say, hey, we really need help this Friday. We don't have anybody signing up. And that's how we're partners in this flood fight. And that's what we'll do. And that's why usually you'll find Bruce Grubb will give a report with Terry Ludlam. How are we today? How many did we make today? And it's just like whenever you have a goal, you'll see, how close are we getting? And you can really be our partners in this.
And I would just add, too, that, we're not competing for volunteers for our sandbag operations, but we do want to make sure that people are really clear that the county sandbag operation is out of the county highway department. And for some folks, that might be a lot more convenient if you happen to live in West Fargo or you live, west of the metro area. It's right there by Bonanzaville and the fairgrounds, so stop by and visit us.
But I'm going to have no.
It sounds like the rainfall that we may or may not have could really impact this flood. How are you guys taking any extra precautions in case that happens, or?
So in our subsequent meetings, you'll see reports as we get closer and closer to the flood crest, and the preparations is precisely for that if we have a rainfall. Flood of 209, we had rain, snow, sleet. We had every element of weather that got into there. Fortunately, in 209, we had a cold spell just before we crested, which really helped us up because it slowed down the flow of water. But you will see that, and that's why Mina taught us a big lesson. Well, you can't predict the rainfall, and Sioux Falls just had a rain event, and they got overwhelmed. So you'll see the team talk more and more about that as we get to that, and I think as we get deterministic, we can address that better. But what you had today was kind of those beginnings of the flood fight. As we go deeper in depth, and if it gets higher and higher, we'll have more and more of the different entities, utilities tell us what we do for the next event. And then we'll reach out to the public as well many times for those different elements. But we're fully aware of the risk we have now. Our big concern, yes, is a weather event. Because you know what you have right now, but you just don't know what might come in the next month. And we've had goofy weather this winter, so let's see what happens. Bruce, you want to comment? Any comments?
No, we're just starting.
Okay. Well, thanks for showing up this morning. Very much appreciate it. And here we go.
Here we go.